Good evening, I'm Pia Ranada, and this is In the Running, Rappler's daily run-through of the highlights of today's filing of certificates of candidacy for the 2022 elections. Today is day 4 of the COC filing, Monday, October 4. The filing of COCs will run until October 8 at the Sofitel Hotel in Pasay, and this show will also run every night until October 8 at 7 p.m. Joining us today as analysts will be Rappler Regional Head Inday Espina-Varona and Rappler reporters Pia Cupin and Dwight De Leon.
Pia, nag-file na ngayon si Mayor Isko, Manila Mayor. May bago bang nasabi, new messaging, and do we know more now about his running mate, si Dr. Willie Ong?
Okay. So, Inday, just to give our viewers rin context, the reason why Inday is asking me about Isko is because ako yung naka-assign kay Isko Moreno for elections. Lahat kasi ng Rappler reporters may assign candidates for the elections. So, Inday, on your question, no, yung isang messaging that Isko Moreno repeated today from his declaration in Tondo a few weeks ago was that he would be a healing president. He would try to unify the different groups in the country na alam natin diba, lots of people group themselves into Dilawan or DDS, and to a lot of people, these kinds of labels are doing more harm than good. And si Isko Moreno is trying to capitalize on that sentiment by becoming like the middle ground kuno. So the different thing that I heard today was he really played up yung Visayas roots na kanyang parents, si Joaquin Dumagoso at si Rosario Dumagoso. And for example, he was saying na he began his speech by saying, I am addressing Filipinos from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi. Tapos sinabi niya na yung tatay niya si Joaquin, galing siyang Antique. Yung kanyang nanay, si Rosario, ay isang waray-waray na galing sa Allen, Northern Samar. And importante ito kasi this is really an obvious attempt, or an obvious parang not naman ploy, but it's just really his strategy to kind of show people that even if galing siyang Manila, born and bred, mayor siya ng Manila, he still represents, or his story still represents that of any Filipino, no matter what region you come from. Kasi yung kanyang sariling father and mother, galing din naman sa Visayas at nagpursige, one of those stories of provincial people from the provinces heading to Manila, seeking greener pastures, trying their luck because walang opportunity sa mga probinsya nila. So basically, yung messaging is, I will speak for you, I will protect your interests even if I am from Imperial Manila. I do not think like an Imperial Manila person, but someone who will fight for the interests of people from even the southern regions of the country. So interesting yung messaging na yun. And of course, we have to point out din na the reason why he had to make that emphasis was because yung tandem niya with Willie Ong, they're very Manila-centric, right? Si Willie Ong is actually just from Pasay. So hindi siya like yung tandems before na, or the usual tandems na kailangan yung isa galing Luzon, yung isa galing Mindanao, yung president Visayas, dapat yung isa galing naman sa Luzon, 'di ba? Parang may ganun usual na strategy pag nagfo-form ng tandems. And it's because a lot of politics in our country is geographic in nature. Like we really, lots of people are loyal to politicians who come from their regions or from their provinces. So this was an attempt to kind of combat that tradition. So that was interesting. And yun, parang sinabi, sige, yes.
Yung sinabi mo kanina, di ba, Isko talks about himself as a healing president, Nandun na tayo sa healing, pero kailangan ng justice din. Maraming nagsasabi, How do you think, has he shown any strong positions on accountability factors, And also, kay Dr. Ong, ano ba yung pananaw natin in terms of what happens if they win and kailangan ng makaharap, ang mga taong nakagawa ng mga kasalanan over the last 6 years. Ano yung take mo doon?
Siguro yung pinakamatapang na sinabi ni Isko about accountability is accountability with regards to the pandemic pharmacy scandal. So, alam natin na ongoing sa Congress ngayon, House and Senate, yung hearings about pharmacy and its huge contracts with the government, the fact that maraming anomalies, diba, na-tamper pa raw yung face shields, and may link pa to Duterte's economic advisor Michael Yang and other Duterte appointees. So si Isko, talagang strong siya on this. Like a few days ago, he said he labeled it as plandemic, plunder during a pandemic, and that he promised he would jail anyone who is proven to be guilty by the courts in this scandal, including the executives of family, including government officials. So yun yung pinaka strong. And I guess we don't have to ask why, right? Because it really is the scandal that is kind of very hot at the moment. I mean, everyone's talking about it, and it really is very worrisome and alarming na may possibly corruption yung pandemic time contracts ng gobyerno. But on the other issues of accountability, like with Laila de Lima, even with Duterte's drug war, very noticeably not as strong si Isko. Like he always says, he will follow the rule of law, he will make sure that if anyone is proven guilty, he will send them to jail. Pero walang as clear a response. Like he hasn't said, for example, if he believes Laila de Lima's case is politically motivated, when a lot of critics of the president acknowledge this, na kaya lang ginagawa ni Duterte to, kaya lang siya in jail is because she really investigated Duterte's drug war killings. So, yun, interesting to see if he will change that stance. Maybe it's just a strategy to kind of also not alienate, Duterte supporters who still form part of the voting public. And we will see na lang, I guess, if he will change that. But Inday, I also want to ask you, kasi you've been covering politics for much longer than I have. Itong this tandem that they have, 'di ba, yung perceived weakness nga na uh, hindi sila ganun ka inclusive in terms of geographic regions. Do you think that's still a relevant weakness now in a world where social media plays a part, and kumbaga parang globalization, like more Filipinos are also, like not really holding on to their identity as, taga Luzon, taga Mindanao, but it's becoming a bit more inclusive with social media. What do you think? Is this still a weakness, or kaya pa naman with the kind of atmosphere and situation we have now?
Well, depende, no? Isko comes from Tondo. That's a real melting pot. Sari-sari dyan eh. And people do have to live together or else sasabog yung Tondo. Alam naman natin yan. So in that sense, lalo na yung mga bata in the world of social media, where links are, we're all linked to each other, not just across the country, but even across the world. Matatawag natin na siguro na-dissipate yung intense regionalism that we've seen in previous elections. Pero at the same time, we also know kasi that social media, as we have painfully learned, also keeps on pushing people into silos, no? So I'm not going to discount that. Pero sa ngayon, tingin ko hindi pa gaano kalaki sa kanilang problema. Although I have personally heard friends from Mindanao saying na maboto ako sa kanya kasi taga Mindanao siya without naming names. So parang meron pa rin ganyan. But if a younger demographic comes in and participates in a big way in the elections, then we might see some changes there. Pia, may tatanong lang ako kay Doc Willie Ong, no? Kilala ko siya, alam kong nababasa ko yung mga articles niya on medicine, and some are really interesting. Pero hindi ko alam yung political stance niya. Ano ba, can you give us a little bit more background sa political positions niya?
First time I came across Willie Ong was actually nung 2019 elections. And naaalala ko, he really would join sorties with Duterte. So, meron talaga siyang some sort of connection to Duterte in the sense na I think Duterte even like promoted him in one sortie or something. And nakita rin natin on social media, si Willie Ong would post with certain social media personalities who we know are either affiliated with Bongbong Marcos or with Duterte. So, marami rin talaga people who, lalo na in the opposition, who already question Isko Moreno's credentials as a non-administration bet. Because Willie Ong yung kanyang chosen running mate, it's making them even more suspicious kung saan yung alliance ni Isko. Kasi nga, si Willie Ong has these parang appearances with these kinds of personalities. But si Willie Ong has also said during yung mga speeches niya with Isko Moreno that's in the past, that because he's a social media personality, syempre he would interact with these fellow social media personalities, and it doesn't necessarily mean he is allying himself with those political forces. So, and talagang super safe si Willie Ong in his speeches. He always says, I don't want to get into a fight. I don't want to talk about politics. I'm just here for pandemic solutions. And talagang sarado siya. He will really not make any political stance on things, which is kind of weird because obviously running for vice president, you do have to make a political stance. Even if you're a doctor, right? You're going to have to make a political stance at some point because you're not just going to handle, or you're not just going to be asked about pandemic while you're vice president, di ba?
And our pandemic problem is a very big political mess. We might add that.
Right.
No? So it'll be interesting how he handles himself during the campaign.
Okay, so let's move on to other highlights of the day. We will now talk to Bea Kupin, who covered the press conference earlier of PDP-Laban COCs faction. So Bea, it seems the COCs faction is moving in for the kill versus their erstwhile party mates. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what happened sa press con?
This would be the third straight day that the PDP-Laban COCs faction has been speaking about Pacquiao's candidacy. Given, kasi nag-file siya Friday, yung una nilang reaction siguro to it, you could call it that, is Saturday, and then yesterday nga sinabi nila na parang automatic expulsion yun. Ngayon talaga wala nang bawian. In fact, a few minutes before this started, they sent us a copy of the notice. It's signed by PDP-Laban's top officials, at least of the COCs faction. So you see the signatures of COCs, Nograles, Evardone, Lambino, Olivares, all signifying that Pacquiao is no longer a member of PDP-Laban. Tapos meron silang bagong quote na hindi nila kinick out si Pacquiao or he wasn't expelled by the party, but that he expelled himself by virtue of filing under Prom D, diba? So a few reminders lang kasi there's also that ongoing battle between the two factions kung sino yung legitimate kasi the COCs camp is asking COMELEC to declare the Pimentel-Pacquiao faction illegitimate. So today, yung last day nila for filing the rejoinder before COMELEC, they also filed what they said is essentially a restraining order against the Pacquiao-Pimentel camp from using the PDP-Laban name. So yun. But again, ito, yung bigger question na parang sinagot pero hindi really sinagot. Sino ba talaga yung standard bearer nila? Again, over the weekend, nagulat tayong lahat. Si Senator Bongo nag-file pala as Vice President, even if he was nominated as President for PDP. Standard bearer siya dapat ng PDP-Laban. Yung sabi ni PDP-Laban President Alfonso Cusi sa isang ANC interview is that basically ang dami pa nilang options ngayon, di ba? So again, fina-float ulit ang pangalan ni Davao Mayor Sara Duterte even if she's already filed her COC for her third and last consecutive term as mayor of Davao City. They're also considering BBM. Marcos as a standard bearer, pero parang medyo mas flighty yung pagsagot ni Secretary Cusi about Bongbong Marcos. Tapos at the same time, open din daw sila if ever na hindi PDP-Laban, parang they'll adopt a standard bearer. I'm sure Inday will have a lot to say about the concept of a ruling party adopting a standard bearer. Kasi medyo weird din yun, di ba? Kung ruling party ka tapos hindi taga PDP-Laban din yung iyong presidential candidate. So ang daming mga moving parts ngayon. Sara Duterte is in talks ostensibly because Duterte, the father, President Duterte, has mentioned her, including dun sa parang casual tete-a-tete with supporters after when they went shopping, after they filed this COC, di ba? Pero parang si Cusi na rin umamin na hindi pa nila kinakausap si Sara. So ang daming mga hindi kasiguraduhan, mga moving parts. Supposedly, Cusi also signed a CONA, but they wouldn't say who it was for. And then, amid all these discussions, diba, about the standard bearer, and I'm pulling out my phone so I make sure I quote her properly. Cristina Frasco, Mayor Sara's spokesperson, Cristina Frasco herself is a mayor. She said kanina, Mayor Sara Duterte has already filed her certificate of candidacy for mayor. Not being a member of PDP-Laban, she is not privy to the party's sudden change of plans. Mayor Sara has no intention of becoming a member of PDP or of being its standard bearer now or in the near future. Pero syempre hindi, that will not stop critics and even allies from speculating kung si Sara ba talaga ang magiging eventual bet ng PDP-Laban ngayon. So, ang dami. Sorry, medyo madami yun na nangyari all in one day and a few hours within the ruling party. Yeah, Pia?
Do you get the sense that yung Kusi faction is kind of pressured to act in a certain way na in a way flouting like the usual PDP protocols? Kasi alam naman natin na before this, they really went through the motions, diba? They held a
Yes.
national convention where they formally nominated Duterte to be their VP. So kumbaga parang all of that was for nothing because in the end, magkakabaluktot-baluktot, Duterte would drop out casually. I think I read somewhere na he made the decision Thursday, and that was just
Yeah.
2 days before he
Yeah.
filed. He announced.
That's another thing that they only announced today. Apparently, on September 30, nagpadala daw ng letter si President Duterte, who is chairman, by the way, of PDP-Laban, addressed to the leadership of PDP-Laban. So, ibig sabihin sila Husi, formally declining na daw the domination as Vice President. Take note na may kona na siya, di ba? Nag-sign na siya ng kona as the Vice President of the ruling party. So, he sent that letter along with the recommendation that Senator Go would be replacing him. Tas na ni-remind ng PDP-Laban din today yung media that they already given formal authority for towards President Duterte rather as the party chairman na siya na bahala pumuno ng kung ano mang vacant national posts for 2022. So I guess that's also in response to the criticism of the Pimentel Pacquiao camp yesterday, 'di ba? Kasi they were questioning na parang bakit biglang si Senator Bongo yung VP nyo? Ano nangyari sa party processes? So what they're saying now is, yan nga yung party process ngayon. Na even if we do not hold another meeting with all our members, ostensibly because we don't have time anymore, President Duterte, as the party chairman and, well, as the president, has the power to pick kung sino yung gusto niya or kung sino yung pwedeng pumuno sa mga vacant positions. So, nasagot din nila kahit paano yung ni-raise na yun nila Senator Pimentel the other day.
Mm-hmm. And it also says volumes that they would be willing to make their standard bearer a non-party mate. Kasi yun din sa sinabi ni Pimentel, di ba? Na how dare you parang float that non-member would become the standard bearer of the party, and that's just giving him more ammunition to say that that faction is illegitimate. Did they respond to that particular criticism? Now, why a guest candidate is totally fine?
They haven't actually. They have this very nice habit of answering the questions that they want to answer and avoiding and putting until later yung mga ayaw. Kasi di ba parang the other day, Saturday pa lang, kinukulit na sila sino standard bearer nyo, ano na nangyari sa proseso. Tapos sinagot lang siya today during the press conference. Sinagot not quite completely because we don't actually have an answer yet. Yung gusto ko mga quotes na i-pull out from Pusi's interview with Head Start earlier today when he was asked, so ano ba, will the ruling party only field a vice president and a Senate slate? Sagot niya is, I think we'll have one, referring to a standard bearer. Si Secretary General Matibag naman, sabi niya is, by October 8, magkaka-standard bearer, which of course, they should have a standard bearer by October 8 kasi yun yung deadline ng filing of candidacy, di ba? So, medyo may sagot na medyo malabo, flighty yung mga sagot. Siguro, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, kung anong kasi mga negotiation din nangyayari within the ruling party. But again, Inday is already here. Yun yung pinagtataka ko, di ba? Parang, paano yun for a ruling party to not have a standard bearer yet? We are in day 4 of filing of COCs. It's kind of strange and interesting.
Inday, do you have any questions for Bea or any observations about this?
Siguro nakikita napaka-narrow ng bench, no? I mean, for a ruling party to have such a narrow bench is really parang nakakagulat. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi nakakagulat because their answers actually show why. Lahat iaasa mo kay Presidente Duterte.
Yes.
Lahat tatango sa kung ano yung gusto ni Presidente Duterte. You know, processes and all, basta gusto ng Presidente yun na yun. And that's been happening in the last 6 years, you know. Everybody has been, nag-uunahan sila, you know, to please President Duterte. And when that happens talaga, you actually kill yung growth ng second liners mo, ng new politicians who can take over because one man has so dominated, you know, the political discussion even within the party. So, ayan ang kalalabasan nila dyan ngayon. Surprising yung statement nga pala ng spokesperson ni Mayor Sara Duterte. Medyo it's becoming stronger and stronger yung tono nila like either now or in the future. Yung mga ganun na, ayaw. Ganun. So, interesting kung ano ang gagawin ng presidente with regards to his stubborn daughter.
Right. Yeah. In the end, parang family dynamics din ito. All right. Thank you so much, Bea, for those insights. Let's go to our reporter on the ground, Dwight De Leon, who came across this party, the Philippine Green Republican Party. Dwight, what's different about this party?
Well, first of all, not a lot of surprising things today at the Sofitel tent where the COC filing is being held. Of course, you're expecting Isko Moreno and Willie Ong to arrive today. But yes, nakikita nyo sa ating screen, that's the PGRP, Philippine Green Republican Party. They filed, or they had an entire slate today come to the Sofitel tent. One president, one vice president, 12 senatorial aspirants. But then, I think it's important to take note that meron na ring nag-file na presidential aspirant under the banner of PGRP last Friday. So, it's slightly interesting. So, of course, you had to ask that question. Sabi namin dito sa guy na nagsasalita, his name, wait, let me just check, Leo Cadion. We asked him, sabi namin, sir, meron na rin nag-file nung Friday. Ang name ay June Yulaga. He's that guy who said that COVID-19 could be cured through electrocution. So we asked him, so sino po ba ang totoong PGRP? So di ba parang to sino ang tunay na PDP-Laban lang ang peg, because this is a similar scenario. And he said na, well, nagkanta kami ng national convention. Meron kaming or nag-organize kami sa mga regions. So sa tingin mo sino ang tunay na PGRP? So this is this is very interesting how they're able to come up with an entire slate completed. I don't know if this has been done in the past filing of COCs na talagang buong slate nagpunta at nag-file ng kanilang kandidatura. About their platforms though, I'm not really sure how siguro grounded these platforms are. We don't really know a lot about PGRP except that this person na nakikita niya sa ating screen, he said na, well, he wants to put an end to OPM politicians. OPM meaning "Oh, promise me." So yung mga tao daw, yung mga politicians daw, napangako ng pangako pero yung mga pangakong napapako naman. So he's saying something about ending political dynasties, and then two senatorial candidates had something to say about first introducing or reintroducing family moral values, and then the other senatorial aspirant said something about the Philippines should be reoriented about its advantages. Like they said na parang it's we have agriculture, we're an agricultural country, and we have a lot of oceans, we have a lot of seas. So why not take advantage now of those as industries? Of course, medyo broad strokes yung binigay nila, and it's also important to note that this Leo guy was declared a nuisance candidate in 2016 and 2019, but he said na, he acknowledged that actually, and he said that, well, we're organized now, and he hinted at the possibility na may budget daw sila this time. So that's the only interesting thing at Sofitel today.
Pero isa pang interesting character, I think, si Chef Boy Logro.
Yes. Chef Boy Logro also filed. Also a buzzer beater. Kaming mga taga-video were like 4:59 na hindi namin nag-expect ng tao, and lumabas ng testing ng swab testing area. Here you go, Chef Boy Logro of I forgot the title of his shows on GMA7, but he was a very popular chef sa show na yon. He talked briefly. He made a speech where he said na parang he wants to help Filipinos get education. Although of course, hindi siya nagbigay ng specifics how specifically he would help, kusineros because he is representing a party list group, or he seeks to represent a party list group that advances the rights of kusineros or whatever that is.
Well, they're also frontliners, so
Yes,
that
they're
is
frontliners.
not concerned. Inday, may
Yes,
questions
yes.
ka ba? Right?
Oh, interested lang ako kasi nung nabasa kong green kanina, usually, if you go to Europe, the Greens are, green and determined environmentalists yan eh. They have,
Yeah.
so, meron ba silang mga specifics? Did they talk about climate change? Did they talk about mining? Did they talk about urban waste and how this can be um, solved?
No, unfortunately not, Inday. Wala silang binanggit specifically about environment. Of course, when we say something about green, parang that's something na parang ma-associate natin doon. Unfortunately, it's not something that they really tackled. Although, ayun nga, parang one senatorial candidate said something about the Philippines needing to take advantage of its geographical parang placement, like since nga daw may mga dagat daw tayo, and marami daw tayong tawag ito palayan, then that's something that we should take advantage of. Of course, ayun nga, medyo broad strokes yung binigay nila sa atin, but we'll see if Comelec will give this party and this Leo Cadion another chance this time around.
All right. Thank you, Dwight, for those insights. Inday, you work in Rappler is focused on regions. So, ano nakita mo today na nangyari sa regions?
Well, actually, interesting signals in Mindanao. We already talked earlier, no? Yung spokesperson ni Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte said she has no interest in joining the PDP-Laban or being its standard bearer. Okay, so biglang lumabas si Bangsamoro Interim Chief Minister Murad Ibrahim, no? At sabi niya, his cabinet and siya rin, no? Support the presidential bid of Sara Duterte. Or more accurately, what he said was that Sara Duterte and we would back candidates endorsed by President Duterte. Ngayon, interesting to because Murad earlier endorsed Maguindanao 2nd District Representative Toto Mangudadato, di ba? Mangudadato earlier showed support for presidential candidate Isko Moreno's Action Democratico Party, no? Actually, member siya ng United Bangsamoro Justice Party na ito yung political wing rin ng Murad's MILF or the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. So parang ang gulo-gulo na. Okay, so Murad endorses Toto. Toto maybe not quite endorses but shows support for Isko's party. And then now Murad biglaang, okay, I'm going to support Sara or whoever Duterte chooses, So ang nagtatanong mga tao, what's with Chair, no? Bakit siya nagsalita? Well, actually, dalawang bagay yan, no? Una, merong isang bill na nagpo-postpone ng Bangsamoro, ng Bangsamoro region elections ng 3 years, no? Matatapos na dapat up to 2025. It's waiting for President Duterte's signature. Now, the BARM officials believe they need more time and fair enough to consolidate yung gains because it's a very new region, no? Natagalan medyo yan. So they think that they need that for their people, no? Doon sa BARM areas. Second naman talaga is, aminin natin, they do have gratitude to President Duterte because they believe that he breathed new life in fulfilling the dream of autonomy for them. Because this had been, shattered by the debacle that was Mama Sapano at hindi nga nangyari yung dream na yon under the previous administration. So dun tayo, we'll see what happens after that. Si Goyo Lardizabal, that's the former commissioner, has filed his COC for latest 4th District Congressional race. Ang kalaban niya dyan, si Ormoc City Mayor Richard Gomez, who I understand is filing tomorrow. Nag-switch lang si Richard at ang wife
Mm.
niya, the incumbent representative, Lucy Gomez. So, tingnan natin. Si Goyo, hindi niya newcomer, although he served for a very long time sa COMELEC. His family is political, no? His mother, Adelina Larrazábal, was a former governor. Ang father niya, si Emeterio, is also a former Ormoc City mayor. So, meron rin siya diyang roots sa city na yan. Another interesting is sa Cebu City, Pia. Um, Kanina lang, Cebu City Councilor Margarita Margot Osmeña, the wife of ex-mayor Thomas Osmeña, said she's running for mayor of Cebu City. Medyo interesting to kasi ang tanging nagsasalita pa lang na magtatakbo siya si Mike Rama, former ally nila yan, and vice mayor of Tommy Osmeña. So medyo, oops, ano nangyayari sa Cebu, no? Sila ba magbabanggaan yung mga old friends doon? Jensen, ang interesting because it's going to have its first congressional district seat, no? And the mayor, Ronel Rivera, has filed his COC dyan. Interesting siya kasi si Rivera, just this year, isa yun sa from one of the richest families in the city and the region. And earlier this year, nag-away raw sila ni Manny Pacquiao. So, medyo, paano yan? Taga dyan si Manny Pacquiao, but now you've got somebody who's going to be campaigning hard and who will probably have an axe to grind against Pacquiao. No? So far, yun lang, except for very briefly in Bacolod City, nawala na yung last legal challenge sa kay Albi Benitez, that's the billionaire former 3rd District Congressman of Negros Occidental, who transferred his residence to Bacolod City because he wants to contest the mayoralty race. No? So the municipal trial court kanina junked a petition against him, which means he's free. And I think also he's filing tomorrow with a complete slate.
Interesting. Okay, so we can really see, no, very exciting races. We're particularly interested sa Cebu kasi alam natin vote rich yan. So the allies of these local officials will also play a part dun sa national elections. So we will be closely watching that. Thank you, Inday, for those insights. This brings to a close the 4th episode of In the Running, which caps Rappler's special coverage of the COC filing of candidacy for the 2022 elections. We'd like to thank our resident analyst, Inday Espina-Varona, and our reporters on the field, Bea Cupin and Dwight De Leon. Join us again tomorrow. Bye.